Hello and welcome to the Dicebreaker podcast.
Live!
It's the podcast you know, but in a brand new shell. Coming to you live from where I live and also where everyone else lives.
The Dicebreaker podcast is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
I mean, yeah. The studio of the internet, right? Yeah, right. This is great. Weird. This is the bits that we normally edit out. But now everyone gets to see them in all their glory. We are here with the first live Dicebreaker podcast. If you are a normal Dicebreaker podcast listener, you might be surprised that we're live because normally it just comes to you recorded about now or an hour from now. But hey, we're trying something new, and it is a podcast that you may recognize some parts of, but we've also rejigged parts of it that we're pretty excited to.
It's fresh.
I thought you were saying purr, so it sounded.
No, it doesn't work. It's too bright.
Oh,
You're showing it to the wrong camera
Applause.
as well.
Applause.
If you, viewers at home, please start clapping.
Yes, just
We
clap,
can hear it.
clap to yourself. Yeah, we hear it in our hearts.
That's right. We have microphones in all of your homes.
Well,
Sarah shouldn't
we'd like to
play
thank our
your
sponsor,
wrong.
Google.
Cool.
I'm Matt Jarvis. I'm here, of course, with the entire Dicebreaker team as it stands now.
Ooh.
Oh, God,
Because
right.
next week we will have a new member of the Dicebreaker team, which we're very excited to introduce you to them. But that's all we'll say for now because you'll meet them soon enough. It's fine.
So mysterious, Matt Jarvis.
I know it's the mystery cast.
Such
That's
a
what we're here
tease.
for.
They always say
Everything.
that about Matt. He's an international man of mystery.
That's how marketing works now, right? Is you just give a little tease of everything,
Yeah.
and
It's
you
all
never
about
actually
FOMO.
give the exactly.
Yeah, you just give them a little crumb and they're like, I want more.
They're like, thank you for this crumb. May I have the loaf? And you're like, no, the loaf is for me.
We're not even on introductions yet.
No,
This is getting worse and worse.
I've introduced
while.
myself. Thank you for joining us here, Michael Wills Whelan,
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Alex Lolies, thanks for being here,
Thanks for getting to me eventually.
and Alex Meehan.
Yep. Last.
Yeah.
Last is best.
And least. Oh!
This is what's happened now. Lolies has just become a bully. Like a school,
No, Loli,
a
that was
school
always,
I've always
her.
been a bully.
That was always her dynamic in the Dicebreaker family. She was the older bully kid.
I kind of feel like I'm the new target. No, this is.
Don't go in my room, man.
Can I please just have one cigarette?
Why are you like a Victorian orphan child?
When am I not like a Victorian orphan child?
That
This
is
is
a very
true.
fair comment, Matt. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, fair.
the bingo call for episode 58,
this
by
is
the way, in
episode
case
58.
anyone cares, is 58, Make Them Wait. Which
Well,
I think
well.
it's really appropriate.
Oh my
Look.
goodness.
That's what you call brand synergy.
Also, I had a look at the explanation. It's obviously a rhyming call, but apparently players often respond with "Choo choo, Thomas."
Excuse me?
All right, let's try it again, and everyone respond with "Choo choo, Thomas." Okay.
Why?
It's episode 58. Make them wait.
Choo
Choo choo,
choo,
Thomas.
We did
That
it.
makes absolutely zero sense.
I know.
If it was like episode 58, make them wait, then I get it,
Yeah, that
Then
would
I'd
be
get
good.
Then
Maybe
I'd
you're
get it.
waiting for the train,
you know?
and it's
yeah.
Thomas.
And it's called
Thomas the tank engine.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Thomas is never late. That's part
That's
of the
true.
law.
No,
Yeah.
that's Gandalf.
If he's late, he gets decommissioned.
No, yeah.
God.
If he's late, he gets bricked up in a tunnel forever.
Right.
Anyway, we're here to talk about board games, but we're also taking something that's a bit new for the Dicebreaker podcast. If you've listened before, is we're playing it a little looser around the edges.
Yeah.
So as well as chatting about what we've been playing this week, we might also just chat about the stuff we've been up to.
Let's not bury the lead,
stuff
Matt.
outside
We
of board
cut
games.
out all the boring bits, basically. That's what.
Pretty much.
We
I mean, you're not wrong.
we walked into our virtual boardroom and
Yeah.
we flipped the whiteboard
Uh-huh.
and we poked at it with a stick and
Me and Lolies
said,
were throwing beanbags to each
Yeah.
other.
Choo Thomas.
yeah. And,
Lolies was shouting "Choo Thomas" a lot. That one didn't stick though.
and we just put a big cross through the word boring.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is the result.
Yeah, we had the different sections of the podcast. Intro, boring,
Lolies is like
emails, finish. And we were like, take that bit out.
It feels like you've been injected with like some mega serum, and this is
I'm super hyped about this being live and this being different. So I'm just living my hyped life.
Yeah, and one of the things is that we obviously do a stream every week. We do several streams some weeks, but we always enjoy having the audience in the chat. So if you're in the chat, fire questions at us and we'll answer them as they come in. Because we always appreciate hearing your questions and stuff, but we have to wait a week to get to them. So now we can
be honest, guys. What's an email? Who's sending emails in the year of our Lord 2021?
More like P-mail, am I right?
Yeah, so please send in your questions via TikTok
Wow.
and what was the social media? Was it called Circles, the Channel 4 show, isn't it? There was a social media thing I signed up to that was like, it's like Facebook, but it makes you happy.
Oh,
and what that meant was there's nobody on it. So it did make me pretty happy.
To be fair, that would work. It's the only way that we're going to be accepting questions for this podcast is we're going to be entering Twitter Spaces and we're going to listen to them via that. It's only fresh new media that no one uses. Right. Well, should we kick off with what we've been playing this week, folks?
Yeah, I guess.
Let's do it.
What we've been doing.
What we've been playing / doing, as this Dicebreaker podcast running order document tells me.
We've still got the Google Doc. It would not be the Dicebreaker podcast about the Google Doc that we often refer to that no one but us can see.
Look, it's all part of the mystique. Who wants to dive in? Who's been playing what?
Matt?
All right, I'll take it.
As it's the first episode of a brand new era of the Dicebreaker podcast.
A whole new world.
Exactly that, Lolies. I think it only makes sense for our fearless leader to kick things off.
A new fantastic world. You thought I was done, but I'm not done.
Lolies, I never assume you're done. I think I spoke about Oath a little bit on the podcast last week, so go back to that one if you're you want a fuller discussion on it. But I have been playing more Oath, which is the new game from Cole Wehrle of Root fame. For those who don't know, Oath Chronicles of Empire and Exile, as its full name is. It's a little bit like Root, but not a lot like Root. So it is a game in which one person is a chancellor of an empire. They kind of leave it nicely vague for reasons that I'll touch on in a sec. But one person is a chancellor, and then there are several exiles who are basically looking to overthrow the chancellor. So it's a game about the kind of rise and fall of leaders and civilization and so on. And it continues to be a fascinating game, and it continues to be, full disclaimer, a game I have never won. I've now played 4 or 5 times, and I'm yet to win a game. I have played with you, Wills and Lolies. I lost that game. I played with my wife several times. I lost those games, and I've played with Meehan and our Root group, which was 4 of us in total, and I also lost that game.
And tell the viewers and the listeners. Pray tell, good sir, who did win that game?
One Alex Meehan
Who's the winner?
Claimed victory in that game. And it was, this is one of the incredible things about Oath, is that I started that, we were teaching the group, including Meehan, who had not played. So we played for about 5 hours in total. So we were playing using Tabletop Sim, so it was taking longer. There were things that interrupted us and so on. It's actually not a super long game. It's a little longer when you learn it. But the thing was that I started as Chancellor. So one of the things with Oath is that you can have different kind of starting objectives depending on how the person won the game before. So if they win with like a military dominance, they claim the most regions, they have to start the next game, whoever's Chancellor, and hold on to those regions because that's where their seat of power lies. Like playing with my wife, she won using the Darkest Banner, which is something to do with secrets. And so she then started the next game with that banner and needed to hold on to it in order to stay in rule. And that's one of the really cool things about Oath, is it does feel like a world that changes, almost like a Pandemic Legacy, but you don't tear anything up. It is just kind of like it cleverly remixes the cards in the box
and
into a
really
world that kind of evolves.
Right? There's no
exactly. Yeah,
like,
it just goes and goes.
Predefined games. It's kind of procedural, like which is really interesting.
Yeah,
we got we did a Let's Play on the YouTube channel of Oath, and I will just apologise to everyone in the chat who is wrestling with the fact that me and Matt went to local comprehensive schools in the 3-county area, which means that we do not know how to pronounce the words TH, which we will say oath.
Scythe.
Scythe and oath. And throne. But yeah, we did a Let's Play with Cole, who basically took us through like a full-on tutorial, which some people were not very happy with.
Yeah, so I think actually it's worth saying. So I think the tutorial Cole took us through is the tutorial that comes when you open the box. Yeah. So when you open the box, it says like, "Hey, open this packet first, open this packet next," and it will kind of the rulebook will run you through the first few turns. And I think that is actually a really effective way of learning to play, because it kind of shows you everything you can do. Because the things you can do, it's not like a super long list, but it's the way that those then combine with like the effects of cards on the table and what you've got in your kind of own domain that make things really interesting. So when I taught Meehan and our Root gang, I have to...
It was
Root
gang. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they play with you?
Very musical podcast from Lolies there. Yeah,
you gotta freshen this up for the kids. Get more musical numbers in there.
The kids, they love a musical.
When Matt was teaching us Oath, you did a really fantastic job, I have to say. It was just it was just like the first time I played Root. It's just a very overwhelming experience. There's just a lot of rules being sort of thrown at you, like, and you're trying to all take it in, and you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to actually translate this into playing a game. But then it just comes together about halfway through, like the playthrough that we had, where essentially it's the case of there are just a lot of options there for you. And you just don't know what to do to start with. But then there are little parts of the game that kind of push you in certain directions. Just you'll draw certain cards or you'll have certain encounters that mean that you're like, oh, maybe this is the most viable way for me to win this game. And then things start making a lot more sense because you're like, oh, I have a direction. I can just focus on this. I think it is just a case of, whoa.
Yeah, it's an interesting game because, like you say, Meehan, it's not as upfront complex as Root, where you have to learn 4 games and everyone kind of has like their focus off the bat. It's like you kind of know what everyone's going for.
It's
but in
like
Oath,
the opposite of Root.
Yeah, things can change very quickly.
Yeah, it's like rather than having that focused right at the beginning and you have to try and absorb everything with that focus in order to have a chance of winning, Oath, I think, is a lot more lenient in that regard, where you're allowed to kind of like float from sort of one thing to the other until eventually you set on something and you're like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And now I can I've got the information I need to press forward with this. But there's still a lot of elements that kind of can push you off, particularly, again, like a lot of Call of Duty games, the other players and how they mess you up and try and screw you over. And we had a really interesting situation where I was pursuing the Darkest Secret because you get these like objective cards that are randomly drawn. They're called visions, and they're ways for you to win the game. And I just happened to get the vision that's like, you get the Darkest Secret. I was like, okay, I can work with this. And then I think it was kind of funny because initially I wasn't really doing anything, was I, Matt? I think we had the running joke that I was just wandering around the hinterland.
That sounds like you, Meehan, to be fair.
Like everyone else was getting into fights and amassing their forces and everything. And I was just on a road trip around like the middle of nowhere, like Wiltshire or something. Just sort of messing about, and then everyone was kind of ignoring me, and I was like, I'm this is fun. I'm fine with
it's
this.
always those people that win, though, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
It's
It's
always
always
those people who
those
just
people.
seem like they're not really paying much attention, and then you're just like, wait, when did you get 400 points?
Yeah, it literally happened like that. I just got this really amazing combination of cards that worked really well with my vision, in the sense that I could destroy all secrets that everyone had.
Oh my god.
So what I would do is I would obtain the darkest secret with the secrets that I'd amassed, which means that I essentially had gotten rid of them for that turn. And then I played this horrible card that destroyed everyone else's secret, which basically solidified my control over the darkest secret. And again, it was just like, some of that was luck, just getting those cards, but it was just like, oh, I've got this fantastic strategy. I like Oath, part of that is winning.
I think, yeah, it was interesting. So, like, I tried not to spend any more time on this because, like I said, I discussed it last week. I am writing a review, so there'll be a review on the site and maybe on the channel at some point. I've got a lot to say about Oath because the more I play it, the more I kind of fall in love with it.
You are a big Colt Whirly stan, so I think
He
it was inevitable.
he just makes really interesting games. I think, like, it's a game where you can see elements of other games in it. You can see a little bit of Root. You can see a little bit of Pax Pamir, which is another Cold Whirly game. You can see a little bit of something like Pandemic Legacy. But it's unlike a lot of other games that I've played in the way that it really puts the things in place for you to make. It's kind of the golden thing, right, of board games. Is like often the things that people do around the table are way more interesting than the things they do on the table.
Yeah.
Like the table is just like a vehicle for fun stuff to happen between friends. It's like it's you having betrayals or you kind of turning on each other, and it gives you enough of that. But there's like a framework in place. So the prime example is I was kind of feuding with another one of the players in our group. We were kind of going back and forth over the military victory because that's what I started with. That's kind of what everyone was going for while Meehan was off sauntering in the hinterlands.
Yeah, I was on. I was Instagramming my trip.
Yeah. So it kept kind of like flipping back and forth between us who was kind of in the seat to win. And then when Meehan got the vision that allowed her to win with the Darkest Banner, you have to hold it for an entire round. And there is, as the Chancellor, you have the option to offer citizenship to exile players. So they flip their board over, turn all of their like warbands, which are kind of like your armies on the board, to purple, which is the Chancellor's color. And you then become like a unified alliance.
That is the most fascinating thing to me about the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's...
Go on, Matt. This is the wonderful thing about it.
Yeah, so I did that because I couldn't get to Meehan to basically challenge the banner. So there was a good chance I was going to lose at the end of the round. So I eventually sweet talked our friend into becoming my citizen. You have to offer like a
use
relic.
the silver tongue.
You have to agree stuff. They don't have to accept. And so we managed to do that. We kind of wrestled the banner away from Meehan. Because she had the vision, it meant that this other player then couldn't necessarily win with it. So
yeah,
was no
just preventing. Yeah.
But the problem was that when someone is a citizen, they can fulfill a different winning objective, which is known as the successor. So if they are a citizen, so they're allied with the Chancellor, they can fulfill a separate thing, and that means that they win instead of the Chancellor if they are fulfilling that. So then I had to suddenly turn my attention to this other player because then they were going to kind of oust me out of my own seat because I'd given them power.
Yeah.
And performed. It was kind of like a needs must situation.
Yeah.
So it turned into this really kind of fun thing of we're technically allied, but I don't really want to be allied with you.
Yeah.
And you can pay to exile people back out. You can basically cast them out of your court. But I didn't have enough money to do that, or favor, as it's called.
It was like something out of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, like I think. Sorry, man, but I think the problem with the Game of Thrones board game is like there is a lot of that sort of like promise of like, oh, it's going to be loads of like dodgy dealings and like, you know, backstabbing and hushed conversations around the table. But because it all is just war centric, it's just like, okay, cool, but like you are just going to take my region because you have to win. One thing I really like about the premise of Oath is that like, yeah, you can just like. You could theoretically have a game where all four players are siding with the person who's in charge or whatever, but it's then a case of like politics. It's not just I have more armies than you, and therefore I win. Like there are like 3 or 4 different ways to win in every single game that you're playing, and like it's always like a different case of what's the most important thing to each player, not just what is the thing that every single person around the table has to do to win.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so like I'll wrap up now because we're leading on, but like the next time we play, by the way, that the Tabletop Sim mod, which is by Later Games, it's an official mod.
It's really
is
good.
Incredible, because it saves your what's known as the Chronicle, and it automates it all, so it's scripted.
Wow.
So it will remember, and we can plug in next time and continue our thing, and the world will evolve around the fact that Meehan won, and one with the vision of, I think it's Vision of Faith, but one with the Darkest Banner. So Meehan will start that game in power,
of course, man.
and the world will recenter around like any regions that Meehan held, like any advisors and any people affiliated with me kind of get cast out because they were on the losing side, basically.
Yeah.
So it feels really natural, but it's not overwhelming. Like, it's a lot up front, but actually once it's in motion, it's relatively straightforward. It doesn't feel this massive behemoth. It just feels like, okay, I kind of know what I'm trying to do. I know what I'm aiming for on this turn, and then the world reacts to that. It's a really interesting game.
And I like to believe that this brave new world that I have curated
This brave
around
new
faith.
world.
Oh goodness, Lolies.
Reprise
will be a better place for everyone to live. So
we'll see how you fare in power.
I've helped the people.
It's intimidating starting as the Chancellor because everyone's against you off the bat. It's one of those fun things. Like, Root is one of the games where once you hit a certain point kind of gap and you're ahead enough, everyone kind of starts coming after you. But this just does it off the bat. Like, it makes no, it's not trying to pretend that everyone's kind of on equal footing. It's like the Chancellor starts in power, starts with stuff on the board, and it's up to the Exiles to basically just pull them apart in 4 different directions.
But apart from the first game, you're only ever in that position because you won the last time, which is
exactly
really cool.
Yeah.
So it's like, that whoever the hell is doing that is the person who is like technically the most recently created of that. So it's it's really cool. I think it's really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts.
Yes, they are. I have a lot of them, like I say, but I think on the whole, like, I am really liking it, and I think I'll continue to play it. We've actually had, before we move on to the next question, we had a super chat from Hello, I'm Duke BN. Good morning, DB team. This live Q&A is a great idea. Thank you. What do you think about the future of board games? Would they become more innovation in some way? And
that's a big question.
Very big question.
I've spoken a lot about Oath, but I think actually Oath is an interesting one because I think that it kind of signals the way that I'd like more board games to go, where it's like a legacy game in that it remembers what the players have done from session to session, but there's no wastage of materials. You're not throwing it away. It feels fresh in that way. And I don't think a lot of games will copy it in the same way that legacy games kind of boomed for a little while.
Yeah, it feels a bit less gimmicky than the legacy run, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a really interesting example of how more and more games are focusing on almost being more like a Netflix series, right? It's like something you come back to time and time again with friends to tell a story, like more story-driven games. So yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the talk has been like revolved around like digital things like apps and all that kind of stuff. But I do think that like innovation in the cardboard space should be done with cardboard. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if we're going to see new and exciting things from a tabletop industry, then they should be done with like actual tabletop implements. You know, and I think some of the more interesting stuff, like, because not only does all of those things that we talked about, not only are they really cool and that's really interesting about Oath, but also none of that is like app supported. Like, we talked about the tabletop sim mod and how it does that for you, but that's all like just things that you do with the cards, and it all like it's quite clever because it all works in like a way where like it's not just rambling. It's not just like you're the Chancellor now and then we just start the exact same game again. Like you say, like the most important regions that were in the last level are now like the center. So the way that the board is split up in Oath, you've got like the capital, but obviously the capital has moved because a new person is in charge, right? So you get all of those things that make perfect sense in the lore. and sort of like still push what the game is trying to do as well. And I think that's the space where I'd like to see more innovation, is seeing more like smart design ideas rather than like new tech or new gimmicks. Because it's cool seeing things like Keyforge and Mansions of Madness that are doing interesting new things that weren't possible before, but I want to see some stuff that is doing that with the limitations that the board games provide, sort of thing. Because I think that's going to be one of the most interesting things come out.
I don't know. I'm in the opposite way. I think digital integration is where it's going. Personally, like seeing people are hungry for experiences like Gloomhaven, but I think Gloomhaven still has that huge barrier of it's enormous. It takes forever to set up, and it involves a lot of investment, both financially and like you've got to have this group that come up every night. And I think, like Matt said with Forgotten Waters, for example, I think that kind of, connection of this is a tabletop game, you're playing it with this book, with this board, etc. But it has this app to kind of make things a lot more accessible. I think that's kind of where board game innovation is going, because obviously more people are getting into it, but there is still this barrier of, oh God, how do I do all of this? And I do think apps can make that a lot easier for people to get into. And I think people want these immersive social experiences that are being provided. And I think it's like an easier way of getting into stuff like RPGs for people who don't want to, again, invest in something like an RPG. So that's kind of where I think things are going. And as long as it's done right, I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
I think there's definitely a place.
The conversation's been shared. Stake your claim to one of these.
I think there's definitely a place for, like, I know from my personal self, I tend to stay away from like app-based games just because, like, and I think there's definitely a place for them, especially when you talk about like heavier games that being like a companion for that. Like, I don't really have a problem with it. I guess for me, I just like when I play a board game, I don't really want to be looking at an app like that. For me, it's like separating myself from technology for a while. But I definitely think there's a space for that, and I think it's good that companies are doing it. I think another thing with board games, we kind of talked about like before how a lot of especially in the last few years, a lot of board games have been like kickstarted and stuff, and has allowed like more marginalized voices and people who don't necessarily have access to big publishers to kind of create games, and it's providing really interesting like games. Like there's that Inspiriles, which is with sign language, and there's the wheelchair thing, like supplement for D&D, like things like that. I think the fact that there's like a platform for like these other voices to come into the market and to like express themselves and to tell their stories as well, and to tell the stories from their point of view as well. I think like there's going to be more of that, which is great, and I'm really looking forward to like all the stories that I haven't heard yet in board games.
Yeah.
It's like in the arts, like being able to like get that information from the voices where that information should be being heard from is really great.
Yeah, I think there is like there's something to be said about how like board games are one of the easiest things for someone to just start making, right? Because it's like, if you want to make a video game, then first of all, you need like some kind of device that you're going to be running that on, whether it's like a console that has some kind of like program that you're making games on, or it's a PC. You need to then start like learning how tools work and learning programming. And whilst like all those walls are slowly being taken down in spaces like that, in board games, if you've got some sheets of paper and a pen, you can make a board game, right? It's like it's such an open space for innovation and for people to try new ideas, and they can literally just like write it down and it's good to go, because it's literally a set of rules. It doesn't need infinite playtesting or bug fixing or anything like that, right? But with it's like when we do see more sort of like app-based games, like if that became like the standard like 10 years from now or whatever, that would be like another barrier for stopping people from making cool things,
Yeah.
I'm not saying they should all be like that.
No.
I'm just saying that
I would hate if they were all like
Jeez.
that. I think that'd be a lot. Yeah.
But there we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big opinions.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Should we move on to someone else?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I was like, hey, we're going to chat about things that aren't board games. Then I spoke for like 25 minutes about Oath.
The
other
most
things I've been doing.
board game there is.
Here you go. Here's 30 seconds of other stuff I've been doing. I finished Resident Evil 8. I like it. I think parts of it are better than 7. I think some of it isn't better than 7. I started Disco Elysium. I'm excited for it. Wheels won't shut up about it, so I had to try it eventually. I've been messing around with Apple Arcade. I really like Song Pop Party, which is just a game where you guess songs. I've also been playing Tabletop, which is like the drumming game. It has anime theme tunes on it. It's good. And in terms of anime, I finished Tokyo Ghoul Route A and started watching Yasuke on Netflix, which I like, but I wish it was more historical rather than having robots and like fantastical science fiction elements. There we go. That's my week in 30 seconds. Alex Lolies.
Hello. I've been playing a few things actually, but they're all quite different. So those of you who were watching our stream yesterday, you know that we played an RPG called Partners.
Oh, you've still got the audio cue.
Yeah. I had to have it ready. So that was fun because that was like my first kind of dive into like a storytelling RPG. Is that what that's called? It was a lot. Like I felt quite bad for most of it because Wheels was very much carrying like the team, but and I was kind of only getting the hang of it towards the end. But I'm kind of looking forward to like doing more of that and kind of like getting more comfortable with it. But I enjoyed the like the kind of theme of it and stuff. Like it was, for anyone who didn't see it, it was we're playing detectives, we're playing a wild card and a straight shooter, and we were trying to solve the case, and along the way we had like different suspects, and in the end we solved the case, and it was great. But I got to, sorry, I had to think for a second if there was something else I wanted to say. But I got to like live out, like Law and Order is one of my favorite TV shows ever. So I got to live out my like Law and Order fantasy. So that was nice. I played more Gloomhaven digital. I play that almost every day now. I won't talk about that. I'm still looking forward to them like going out of a beta, which apparently they're supposed to do like this year, according to Dicebreaker.com.
Oh, really? I wonder why you'd go to that website.
Actually, I literally just Googled it, and it was the top thing that came up.
Yes.
SEO. And I played Yahtzee. Taught somebody Yahtzee, and we played that. And I won the first game. I lost the second game, and then we're like, let's stop because otherwise one of us will be sad. And we played Micro Macro. It's so silly because I had 3 like cases left. We played 2. So there's just 1 left. And I was like, I really wanted to finish the last case, but the other person wasn't up for it. So yeah. And I don't know if anyone else like plays it like this, but when I get the first question, I go off on one. Like I'll find the first bit and then I'll just go off. Like, and I know like some people will play it like on hard mode where they don't look at the questions or whatever. I think Wheels, you were telling me about that before. But I'm not doing it on purpose. I'm just like, because I'm on something. I just follow it around and I'm like, okay, let's check what the actual questions right now.
I think that is kind of like one of the strengths, but also the flaws of that game. Because sometimes you're like, by the time you have read the question, you kind of spoiled it for yourself because you've already been like, oh yeah, no, I saw that like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. So almost finished Micro Macro, and I'm intending to play a few games over this weekend, including so I've had these like childhood favorites. I was talking to someone about like, you know, games that inspired me like when I was in my childhood, whatever. And there's 2 games, well, 3 games. Monopoly was a big one, which like everyone's gonna go around, but like Monopoly was a big one for me growing up. I used to play it by myself. That was it. When I was younger though, I also played Enchanted Forest and Labyrinth. So I've ordered them and they are supposed to arrive today.
Oh wow.
Today. So I'm hoping to play those over the weekend just to like see what they're actually like, because I remember playing them and I remember liking them as a kid, but I don't remember really anything about them.
I feel like you'll have one of those moments where you'll watch a film that you thought was really funny when you were a teenager and you're like,
you're like, oh, this is really good.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're meant for like 4-year-olds, so I'm not having like massive expectations, but I just want to dive back into that and just like, see see what it was like and just remember like the mechanics and things like that. And Magic. Now that if some of you may know, we did a live watch party just earlier today. We being Wheels and myself, where we watched Magic the Gathering.
We got sponsored to watch the Strixhaven College Clash.
Yes.
So Magic sponsored us, just for full transparency there, but we basically did a watch along. It was kind of like a British Bake Off style, Great British Bake Off style, like learning about Magic the Gathering.
Aoife Wilson was in it.
And Aoife was in it from Eurogame.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did they competed. Bake a cake with Magic?
They don't bake a cake. It's the format of Great British Bake
Off. It's like
not
that
the
kind
actual
of
activity.
Magic, the
reality. Yeah.
Don't lead me on there, Wells. Come on.
But I enjoyed that so much that I was like, and the thing is, Magic, actually, or like Wizards. Is it Wizards or no? It's Magic, right?
Magic the Gathering is made by Wizards of the Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they sent me like a load of packs of cards, and I've just kind of been looking at them a bit overwhelmed. Like I don't know where to start, but I think I might crack a few of them open and have a go with them this weekend and see where we're at.
Interesting.
Yeah, we might even play some today, but Chase, our sort of freelance news writer, has been goading us into doing Friday Night Magic on Arena, so we might be playing some of that later as well. So that might be a good opportunity for Lolies to learn some of the ins and outs.
Chase is a fantastic teacher. I think it definitely helps having someone who just knows how that game operates and can kind of point out like, oh, here's why you might want to do this, or here's why you might not want to block with all your creatures, or play these in a certain order.
He is an expert at teaching scrubs how to be slightly less of a scrub. So
I don't want no scrub. Scrub is gotta get no love from me.
This is your challenge. How many songs can you fit into this podcast episode? But yeah, no, I have been like a little bit addicted to Magic recently because of Arena. So I'm excited to see what Lolies thinks of it, because I know Lolies is very good at games and I know Lolies is very competitive. So I feel like Magic being probably the most like try-hard, mean-spirited card game there is, I think Lolies will really enjoy it.
I fear for the day that Alex Lolies like discovers deck construction in Magic the Gathering, because like you would be incredible, like coming from Star Realms, which you are scarily good at. Like you have a knowledge of how those cards go together. With Magic, I feel like you would create some kind of... You would beat the decks that I get beaten by when I go up against anybody online and I'm just wiped in a turn.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because when we watched that, when we did that watch party earlier, part of it was like they were teaching Aoife and like some of the other contestants, like about Magic and like literally from scratch. And when they were doing some like deck construction at some point, and they were talking about like the kinds of cards that you should put in or whatever. And I at the time I was like, that's exactly the kind of cards I would choose, just based on like Star Realms, as you say, because that's kind of like the main card game that I play. That's anything similar to Magic the Gathering. So I'm interested to see how it would actually fare and if I would get good at it.
I think Magic's weird because like people are like, I don't know how to play Magic the Gathering, but you've played card games, right? And they all have some kind of inspiration.
Yeah, but it works. Having played card games and then played Magic the Gathering, it does work incredibly differently in terms of...
but saying that, the two inventors of Star Realms were Magic the Gathering Hall of Famers, and so a lot of their inspiration for Star Realms came from Magic the Gathering. So I think there's probably a big basis on that.
I think sometimes you see things and you're like, oh, I know how that works. I just didn't know it was called that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because you're like, oh, I've played with this mechanic before in, whatever card game it is that I've played, Because
I think
a lot of them are based off that, right? Sorry, mate.
You also have to like acknowledge the fact that Magic is really old, and like card games have evolved since Magic, but Magic hasn't necessarily evolved along with them, because Magic is Magic the Gathering, that people play Magic for a reason. That's fine. I'm not asking Magic to change for my sake. I'll just play something else. But I think it's just going back to a system like that, having played ones, for example, where enemies... there's no block system.
Yeah.
And like it just works. Enemies on the board work so much differently. It just feels different. I think it still feels really different for me to play Magic compared to like Keyforge or Hearthstone or any of the other kind of card games that I've played. When I started playing Magic, I was like, what do you mean I can't do that?
It is creaking. Like,
Yeah.
this podcast will go on for about 3 hours if I was allowed to talk about all the things I do not like about Magic. But no, I think it's not the, oh, you've played Magic because you've played other card games. I think it's like, oh, right, I've played a better version of this mechanic, but I know what the base route is now, and I can be like, oh, okay, cool,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things where Jason Coles, friend of the site, actually wrote a really good piece on this the other day in relation to Arena. But you can see where the designers clearly want to push that framework out, but it leads to so much text on cards where they're trying to get different ideas in and they still manage to, even 25 years later, 20 or almost 30 years later, they're still getting interesting new mechanics in, but the cards are having to do all the work because you can't change that framework, right? It's like, so they're having to explain things on cards that have a fixed size text box in a lot of cases, or introduce keywords that you then have to go and look up if you're not
the
already
font gets
familiar
smaller
with them.
and smaller.
Exactly. Yeah.
I saw so Titan Uranus in the chat just said Wheels is basically Conan the Barbarian. He hates magic, which is funny, but like it's not like I don't hate magic. Like I genuinely really enjoy it, and that makes it even more frustrating because I'm like, I really like this game, but who the hell invented milling? Like why do land cards work like that? Like there's just so many things. And I think the most telling thing, and I said this on a stream at some point, is when you look at games that Richard Garfield has made since Magic, like Keyforge, and you can see all those things are completely absent because you can tell he was just like, I never want to have to figure out how to make land cards less crap anymore. Like, I don't like blocking, so in Keyforge you just choose who you want to attack. Like all those kind of things. It's just
that to me is like a mind-boggling thing. When I played Magic, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I can't choose who I can attack. Like, what?
Yeah, so then you get like that's one of the big things that you can probably talk about is like, because you can't choose who to attack, you then can only remove certain units from the board that just aren't going to block you because they're sitting there doing something more important by having loads of cards that basically say, no, screw you, you can't do that. So counter spells and destroy this target and all that kind of stuff, which means that the game has become so mean because it's just like you can build an entire deck of cards that just say, ha, no, you suck. Ha, no, go away. Ha, no, you can't do that. And it's just like, oh, all right then, fine, thanks.
So, Wheels, have you been playing a lot of Magic this week?
I have. I've also been playing, speaking of card games, I've been playing the second edition of one of my favorite card games of all time, Summoner Wars. Which is very, very good. So me and Lolies did a little Let's Play. Lolies, you were really into it, actually, from our brief
I liked it a lot.
foray into it. So we played as... Oh, is it the Breakers, your faction, I think we're called, versus the Cave Goblins.
Yeah.
I've actually got it right next to me. But this is like a very, very pretty edition of this game. Like the art is a lot more modern. If you've seen the art on the original game, like it's functional, but it's super like old fantasy book, like bland.
What was it like? 2009, like board games,
it's like relatively old.
Such a long way, I think, in terms of aesthetic.
This is like, it's gone for a more sort of cartoony aesthetic. Like it's a lot more sort of like soft edged and bright and colourful, which I'm sure some people won't like. But like, in general, I think it looks really nice, and I like a lot of the design decisions they've made. So like my favorite faction is one called the Fallen Kingdom, which are basically like a necromancery style, like, you know, they can bring units back from the dead and stuff, which is good fun. And they've got that whole system of like you can hurt your own summoner in exchange for doing something, which is really cool because you win the game by defeating the other summoner. So it's like a sort of gambling mechanic.
Yeah, like the Warlock from Hearthstone.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's like I really like those guys, but in the original they've got the bog standard. We look like cultists and we've got green lighting everywhere, and it's just very like obvious,
generic.
Yeah, but we're with these guys, like they've still got like vibes of that. But like, sorry for those listening on the audio version, but like you can see this guy, like they've gone for like a fire kind of, because they've gone for like hell, like they're literally like devils and stuff, which is really interesting.
It's little Nas X down there.
Yeah, exactly. It's Montero, and somebody's like doing a pole dance, but it's like it's not like a super inventive thing. Like obviously we've seen like fiery mages before, but to see them in that context is really interesting. So I think they've done a really good job of modernizing and revamping the artwork. But more importantly, the game, which was already fantastic, is now even better. Like there's so many things that their quality of life improvements and just like little things like, you know, you don't have to, you know, there's a system called Magic, right, where you either discard your own cards or destroy the opponent's cards to get the resource that you spend to play new ones. So you have this thing of like, do I keep this card in my hand or do I get rid of it so I can like spend it on something else? But in the game, like that was physical cards in the first edition. So if you destroyed an enemy, you would literally pick up that enemy and put it on your pile. So at the end of the game, everyone had like half of my cards and half of your cards. You have to like shuffle them into piles and then give them back and all that kind of stuff. But now they've just got like a little counter and stuff like that, right? And there's just so many little things like that that you wouldn't notice unless you played the original game, but are just really, really refreshing sights. But the most exciting thing is like the new like faction mechanics are really cool. So the one I was most excited about were the polar dwarves, who have got like a sort of Viking theme to them.
Of course, you'd love that.
No, not because of the theme, because of the mechanics, Lolies, because I'm a dweeb. So the way they work
Actually,
is,
I'm a dweeb.
I think I'll find Schwing. So the way they work is you've got like buildings in Summoner Wars. So you don't just summon a creature onto the battlefield. They have to spawn at these things called gates, which used to be called walls for some reason, which didn't really work very grammatically, but yeah. So you can use them like actual barricades because they're things that people have to destroy to get through. But also you use them as spawn points. And with the polar dwarves, they get those, but they also get like parapets and stuff. Like they get other things. So like, for example, they'll get like a miniature wall that's not as strong, but your units can shoot through it. So you can use
dwarves like building.
Exactly. So you've got like a sort of like defense system. But what's really interesting is like they have loads of spells that move all of those structures around and like hit people with them. So you've got like a spell where it's like shift your walls, and if it like ends up adjacent, it does damage to them. So you're like they're like grabbing the gates and just punching people with them and stuff, which is very cool. They've also got like one of their creatures is this giant ice golem, and it counts as a creature and a structure. So it can only move one space a turn, but you can spawn from it. So you can move them into enemy territory and spawn. There's loads of really cool things like that where it's just like you can tell they've gotten really inventive, because there were things like that in the original game, but I feel like they were all in like packs that you would have to buy in like in addition to the game itself. Whereas now that they've got a chance to revamp it, all of those cool ideas are now just straight away in the box. And I'm sure they'll have more cool stuff as blister packs and stuff. But yeah, it's fantastic. I'm going to do a review. So just like Matt said, you'll hear more about it later, but it's really good.
Yeah,
it's really
Plaid Hat as well, right? So Forgotten Waters, like killing it so far since they went independent again. Yeah,
there is a case to be said of like now they're not owned by a big publisher and they have a bit more choice in what they're doing. But yeah, I played some Arena. Me and Lolies watched Strixhaven. I've also been playing more Arkham Horror with Zoe. We got into a scenario, immediately died. So
nice. Yeah, that sounds like Arkham Horror.
We've got this kind of system now where it's like we get 2 goes. So if the first one goes horribly wrong, we get a second chance, and if that one goes horribly wrong, then we have to take it. But otherwise, we've got like another chance. But yeah, Zoe has now got a lightning gun, which is absurd. It's like 3 damage a hit, and it gives you like +5 to your fighting stat or something. But it's super expensive. But yeah, it's cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing it come out and blow something up. But we're getting right towards the end of the campaign now, so it's getting really hard.
Nice. I feel like that's the thing with like a lot of the Arkham Horror games is they take it really seriously, the lore and the kind of, and then you'll just get these unbelievable cards and weapons and items that are just the silliest stuff.
But yeah, that's what I've been playing this week.
Nice.
Right. Speed round. Let's do this. Okay. So this week, apart from Oath, I've been playing Vengeance Roll and Write, which is a really interesting. It's like a spin-off to the Vengeance series, which is kind of a game where you just go around brawling with bad people from like mafia gang and stuff. But in Vengeance Roll and Write, it's a roll and write game. So you have a map on a lamination board, and you roll dice, and you have to like move through the map and you use your dice to do your different attacks and your moves. And it's really interesting because I think Matt was saying he was worried that it would just be a roll and write game themed around vengeance, but it really isn't. It's like they've taken the mechanics of vengeance and like tried to translate it into a roll and write. For the most part, it works. We do have a preview copy, and to be honest, the main issue we found is that in the rulebook, things are named differently than are named on the boards and the cards.
No.
That's a
So it's
classic
confusing.
prototype thing, right?
But we think it's just because it's a preview copy.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, it's really interesting, and I think my flatmate and I are going to play more. But I enjoyed that. We attempted to play a game called Excavation Earth, which is from Mighty Boards, and it came out this year. It was on Kickstarter, and the theme is really interesting and exciting. It's like you're aliens and you're going down to Earth, and Earth is now like a ruin, but it remains in the form of like these artifacts that you can find and sell on the alien market. So it's like you're grifting, and there's like a black market, and you can do shifty things, and you've got the different factions. So the idea of it sounds really interesting, but oh my god, there's so much stuff in it. It's so big, and it's just so daunting. It took us an hour to set up.
Oh god.
And they're literally 2 players, and there are just so many mechanics to it. It's like you've got the whole you find the artifacts thing, but then you've got this whole market mechanic where there's like a population track, and then things sell at a certain price depending on what the population track is doing. And you have to do like actual calculations with the population track to work out how much your stuff is. Why couldn't they just do this is worth this because this is rarer, this is worth this because this is more common? Why do you have to also make the selling part complicated?
It sounds like they're trying to do like a supply and demand kind of thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think Raccoon Tycoon is like a really good example of how that stuff can be digestible, but like so often, like you say, Meehan, it's just like, it's half the work to just like make the game operate before you even play it.
Nothing turns me off more than that as well.
It's like they had some interesting things of you can like get your crew members and you can make them envoys. And it's like you could make an entire game out of any of these separate parts. Instead, you've decided to put them all in one game. It's like when they make an album and it's like 2 sides long and it's just like all these songs in it. And you're like, why did you have to keep this stuff in here? It would have been so much better if you cut it out. It's not that I don't like big, complicated games. I mean, like, I've played those and I've enjoyed it. Like, it's just when you make a game that just the rulebook is so off-putting and intimidating, and like I have to sit there and try and work out what the hell I have to do with this. It's just really a shame when the idea of it sounds so exciting and cool, and then I just try to make me do complex maths. Like
I remember when we first tried Oath in like an earlier version when we were at PAX. And the way that the battles were calculated was using a ratio system. Yeah. And I genuinely, like, they were explaining other rules to me, and I kept looking at that thing like, I can't.
Yeah.
The
battles, no.
It can just completely screw some players, like me included. I'm just not good at maths, and it really makes me panic. Like,
yeah, I think it's a real barrier to people because I genuinely really struggle with mathematics. Like, it's something that my brain, I can't remember what the term for it is, like when it's dyslexia, but for numbers.
Dyscalculia, I think.
Dyscalculia,
yeah.
I think so.
Essentially, I really struggle. Like, I have like panic attacks when people are like, you have to do this complex, like, calculation in your brain. I just can't do that. I get really embarrassed and stressed. So please don't put that in your games. Just
It's not just can you do a complex calculation. It's can you do multiple of them when other people are waiting for you to finish. And that makes it really stressful. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't figure it out. Like,
it's a shame because like there were some really interesting elements in that game, but then as soon as I started reading that, it just really put me off, and we literally put it away after spending an hour setting it up. And other things I've been doing outside of board games is playing Pokemon Sword, which I actually quite like. It's better than I expected it would be.
Did you catch
Lolies
the teapot Pokemon?
Teapot?
There's a teapot Pokemon.
It's all very like British whimsy.
you know what? The teapot one is one of the better ones, in my opinion.
There's a soccer rabbit.
There's a soccer rabbit.
There's a Pokemon based on
Yeah.
like bedpans or something.
James Bond lizard.
Is that the one that when it runs, it has flames?
I don't know. Skull Bunny is.
Scorbunny,
yeah.
Skull Bunny,
I thought
That's
you
in
were talking
Pokemon
about-
Snap,
I thought you were talking about the teapot.
which is great, by the way. Everyone should play Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's a lot harder than I expected. It starts off as like baby game, and then you're like, oh god, like this game is really kicking my butt. Like,
It's JRPGs though, isn't it? They just get like, unless you're grinding, they just get exponentially harder. Like they just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
it is the case of like, unless you are cultivating a team that can cover these different types, which I don't do because I just play favorites. Guess what Pokemon
Full
I've got
team
on
of
there?
Swoobats.
Full team of Swoobats. No, I've got one Swoobat, and it's called My Precious Child. I also have, the James Bond lizard. I've called it James
Gex?
Pond.
Oh god,
The
those
greatest
games
thing
were
ever.
terrible.
Yeah, I've been playing that, and also I'm really excited about season 4 of Castlevania coming
Yes.
out. Oh my god, I wish they would continue that show. It's a shame that it's ending with this season because it feels like it go on a lot longer.
I feel like it got 2 more seasons than most Netflix shows get.
Yeah.
Right? So and yeah, I mean, amazing that they made something so good out of such a thin premise.
I know I'm not a Castlevania fan of the games, but the show just, they really went for it. How violent that show is incredible. Like, it is really gory, but I really like it, and I'm looking forward to the last season. And I've also been watching Sex Education, which is really funny.
Oh, it's a great
and
show.
sweet.
It's a really great
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
I just started watching it this morning and just watched like 5 episodes because I was like,
It's
this
great.
is really good.
Big up,
So there you go.
All right, let's take some questions before we move on to a very brief news section.
We've made the news.
You'll
so
never
brief,
guess
everyone.
the section that we trim down the most. Rasmus NEM, thank you for your super chat. Says we all know Monopoly.
Do we
I
all
don't
know?
know I don't know why I added like an extra break there. We all know Monopoly can be a real downer once the eponymous Monopoly is there. But would opposite Monopoly, Polyopoly be good?
Well, as in, doesn't it start?
How would
as a
that work?
polypoly?
I guess, yeah, because I guess everyone starts on equal footing, right? That's the problem. It's
Oh,
like,
well, no. So what
Or
Rasmus is
poly-
suggesting is someone. Well, what I'm inferring.
You
is-
give them money when they come to your property.
No, I was going to say that they
Many-
start with a monopoly. So you start with some.
oh,
many.
I see.
The goal of the game is to break to the most even.
That'd be
Yeah.
quite cool, actually.
That's kind of interesting. It's kind of like.
Oath, yeah.
Yeah, with the Chancellor, right? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
I think that there's a lot of interesting games where you all act as smaller buyers and it's less about just like dominating the market than
Yeah.
it is about
Making
putting
your
a
own way,
niche.
sort of
But
thing.
yeah, I think Monopoly is not great. We'll get onto that. There's speaking of the news section. let's have a
Whoa!
look.
Matt Jarvis, are you steering this chopper towards the news?
I am. Hold on. I'm also looking for some questions. I think we had a lot of questions, so I'm
they're
trying
in
to.
the document, by the way.
Yeah, we've been
Oh, you're
writing
actually
the
sticking
doc.
them in.
Yeah,
oh, thank you
we've
so
been
much.
putting
We've
them
got
in
one
the
here from
document.
Major the Tower who says it's a 2-parter. 1, do you miss your D&D characters from Dungeon Breaker? I'll just open that one up quickly because I feel like this is a yes or no.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah?
I
Yeah.
really loved Morboss. I will.
I didn't really like Fizz, to be honest. It wasn't that like I didn't like the concept. I think I just sort of like lost my way with him a little bit. And by the end of the series, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this character.
Yeah.
So when we decided that we were going to freshen things up a little bit, I think it was kind of an opportunity for me to go, all right, cool, let's put this character to bed for now and just
And
sort of
for-
think about something interesting.
They might come back at some point in the future. Like, who knows? Like, I think Dungeon Breaker was a lot of fun. Like, it had its issues, particularly as we moved to remote, like playing remotely. It just changes things, right? It like changes the dynamic. And I think like we felt that, and at points the audience felt that.
Mhm.
You know, there's no point making bones about it. But I think overall, like, we had a lot of fun with it, and those characters are fun. And like, if we can find a way to bring them back in a way that feels, like it deserves to be done, we'll do it.
But the second
Maybe
part-
Fizz, the way Fizz flies now, maybe he crashed into a mountain so he can't come back and you can play
Spoilers.
something else.
flies
Jesus.
and immediately flies into the sun, Icarus style.
It's like Holy Grail
returned-
style, and Fear's not appearing in this session.
he returned back to his home planet, but was killed along the way.
My planet needs me. The second part of the question, though, is how do you feel about fan stuff around Dungeon Breaker? Fan fiction, for example, or fan edits? Which I find really funny because, like, it feels like it doesn't feel like Dungeon Breaker ever got to a point where fan fiction makes sense in my head.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, we're still a small channel. We've literally just started in the grand scheme of things. But, you know, like, we weren't at, like, the big leagues kind of thing. So the idea of fan fiction, I'm like, really? For Dungeon Breaker? But, like, I'm kind of interested by it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised by it, but I'm kind of really into it in the sense that I like fan fiction. I think it's a great idea, as long as you keep it to the characters, please.
I think that's
not
the
to
main
the
thing, right?
people.
It's like, yeah,
Please don't make fan fiction about us. Please make it about the characters if you're going to do it.
It's respecting that boundary.
Boundary,
you know, you can take this like fan fiction for anything. It's like it's amazing to see a community respond to characters or something you've come up with. Like that was always and is always one of the best parts of like this job. But yeah, like just know where that line is drawn. Like ultimately, you know, we're people the other end of this. It's like we see a lot of the comments, like a lot of the good ones, a lot of the bad ones. Like we're people, like we have to put up with it. And so I think people sometimes forget that because they think that like we're more like a massive exactly or like a celebrity who has like layers of PR and separation from that stuff. But like we're the people on the screen, but we're also the people doing the stuff behind the scenes as well a lot of the time. So
yeah, I'd also ask if it involves Tim, please don't make it sexy.
Oh,
like,
make it sexy.
My other
I want some
characters,
raunchy Tim roleplay.
my other characters, I'm totally down for it. But Tim is just a child in my mind. I can't.
I will never forget that session where you just said something and like
it wasn't intentional.
Started crying and then Johnny broke. I managed to break Johnny and then I think Will started going as well and we were all just shaking
because we were all just trying to move along but we just couldn't let it go.
It just caught me. It was one of those things where it wasn't actually that funny or like you hadn't done it on purpose or anything like that. It was just the offhanded
because we couldn't
kind of
laugh, which made it harder to not laugh. But Matt Jarvis, would you like to do a very brief, or Meehan, I'm not sure who's in charge of this, a very brief look into some of the news that you can see from Dicebreaker.com this week or coming up?
Yeah, let's do it. So for those who listen to the normal podcast, we've kind of trimmed this down to just a couple of the headlines that we think are most interesting from this week. There's a lot of news on the website, but you can go and read it on the website. You don't need us to read it to you. Alex, Meehan, kicking off this very brief news section, tell us about this interview you had with Isaac and Lindsay, which sounded very interesting.
So early this year, it was announced that Rose Gauntlet Entertainment had been founded by Isaac Vega, who co-designed Dead of Winter, Forgotten Waters, and Lazy Road. And they had formed Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, and their first game is Keystone North America, which actually hits Kickstarter next week. Very exciting. And I had a nice chat with them just about what Rose Gauntlet, is up to, what they stand for, what we can look forward to. Yeah, tell us. And what we can kind of look forward to from the studio. And one of those things they teased is a horror game being created by Isaac Vega. The code name is currently called There Will Be Ghosts. So it is subject to change, the title. And we don't know a huge amount about it other than that there is a clear intention there that they want to make it frightening. Like they want to try
very frightening me, Galileo. 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 Yeah. Right,
yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Meehan's got no time for this.
I'm just waiting. I just wait for you to stop.
Let the little spinner wind down.
Yeah. Yeah, so when talking to them, it's funny because apparently Isaac is a bit of a scaredy cat, according to Lindsay. He said he hates watching scary things, but he likes designing scary games. And Lindsay Miller was like, "Oh, I think he's good at it because he genuinely makes himself scared, and so he knows how to make other people frightened."
There's this interesting thing of like people who make horror content are actually big wusses. You know what I mean? Like there's have you seen that like interview with Junji Ito where he's like, "Oh, that's creepy," to some like really mundane thing, and it's like, "You're Junji Ito. You make like horrendous stuff."
Well, I think isn't it like the thing they say about like comedy writers, like the best comedy writers don't like never laugh at their own jokes.
Yeah.
Because if you laugh at your own joke, the chances are it's probably not that funny.
It's just self-indulgent.
Yeah. So I wonder whether horror writers were the same, because Junji Ito has made some of the like for comic stuff that isn't as visceral as like a film or audio. Junji Ito stuff genuinely creeps me out, but I love it. Like you can see that I've got like all the books translated to English so far, so it's like he's if you're looking for something that's genuinely kind of upsetting and weird and twisted, like I think there's no one doing it better at the moment.
But this raises an interesting question, which has already been put in brackets by Matt Jarvis. What is a board game that's actually scary? And like if you can't think of any, like, well, how does a board game scare you? Because that's like that baffles me. Like what? Like it's cool to have a horror theme, but I've never played a board game that actually scared me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if anything, those moments come more from being unsettled by games like Werewolf, like Social Deduction, where the line between lying to your friends for real and lying to your friends as part of a game are blurred. So like that's the stuff I find most interesting in those. Is like, oh, I'm genuinely deceiving my friend by saying this. Like it's in this game, but I'm lying to them straight up, and they're falling for it. Like, is this gonna like weirdly erode our trust?
There's that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lolies.
I'm just gonna say, I think every board game is scary because the thought of losing scares me.
Thanks, Lolies. And well, I was just gonna say that Nyctophobia was the blindfolded game.
I've not played it yet, actually.
I want to play that so much, and the idea of it actually makes me a little bit scared.
The idea is great, but will it be scary? I don't know, because like you have not played it. So that's a really interesting idea. Like I don't know how you make a board game scary. Like that really intrigues me. So thank you for putting that in brackets, Matt.
For the listeners and the viewers, Nyctophobia is a really interesting game. It was like designed by someone who did they have a relative who was blind?
Their uncle, yes, Catherine Stipple. Their uncle was blind.
And so they were like, oh, how do I make a game that they could play? And it just became this horror game where the basis of it is you have to feel the board with your hands. There are like these prongs that kind of come off it, and you like feel where you are. So you're all blindfolded when you play, and you're running away from like a killer who's played by one of the players who is not blindfolded. So it's just a really interesting. I love games that play with stuff like that.
The idea being that you're like in pitch black darkness in the middle of the forest and you can't see anything.
Like
and you're trying to find your friends and make it back to the car.
It looks amazing. Would that scare me? I don't know. Interesting.
I think role-playing games are much more successful. Why are you laughing?
No, because Wills was dancing.
He
was doing like a Mr. Crab.
I thought I said something. I thought I said something funny, and then I didn't realize it.
You've thought about that Tim moment now, and it's got in your head.
Yeah, I'm paranoid. I think role-playing games have a potential to do that. Like, I know when I've been playing something like Dread before, I've been a little bit like, ooh, like, the atmosphere's got to me. I mean, like, I can have fear for, like, my character in a game like Eldritch Horror or something, but I think it is really hard to... I actually wrote an article about this once on Waypoint, which
That's not our website.
I know.
I think Waypoint's back now. It's called Waypoint again.
Okay.
Because it became Vice Games or something, and then they realized that that's a terrible name, and Waypoint's actually a really good name.
About like whether role-playing games, like tabletop role-playing games, could be scary, and it is tough. But
10 Candles is a good example. like a game that actually uses like an oppressive atmosphere by having you play in pitch blackness with just little candle lights that go out as the game goes. I think you need to get like an element of like player immersion, like the blindfolds and the candles and that kind of stuff, where the players feel as on edge as they should, like as their characters are, you know.
Yeah.
But there we go. Yeah,
for sure. The other article I pulled, one from our lovely news report Chase, Monopoly Life-Sized is coming to London. It wouldn't look. Many things change about the Dicebreaker podcast as we go live. One thing that doesn't change is the opportunity to go Monopoly. So yeah, this is coming to London. So it's a Monopoly escape room over 3 floors in the West End. And
I must admit, if there is one feeling I feel about Monopoly, it's wanting to escape from it.
Well, so I'll blitz through the details and then we can go. So you choose a game piece to represent you, and then you move around like a kind of condensed version of the Monopoly board. And when you so the tokens, Chase writes here, these tokens are also real people who will help teams keep score, remember rules, and provide hints. So you're kind of just like, instead of playing the dog, I guess you've got someone dressed as a Scotty dog or dressed as a Tom.
No.
Oh, you're just dragging them around with you.
This is just a kink thing, isn't it?
So yeah, and when you move onto a property, you then go into an escape room and you have to solve the like puzzles in there in order to purchase the property. So it's a very odd kind of combination of escape room and actual Monopoly. Very sounds weird. Like
it's one of the puzzles you have to solve, refusing to compromise with a union. Is that one of them, or like lowering groups' wages or something?
Yeah, or just being terrible as a landlord, as you charge rent. So yeah. You do roll a die and you advance around this board, but apparently, so here's the interesting thing: the whole experience will take about 75 minutes, which is approximately a tenth of the length of any Monopoly game that's ever been played. So, despite playing a game of Monopoly and doing escape rooms,
if you play it right, it doesn't take that long.
You are
if you
right,
play it by the rules,
if you play it by the rules, it's a far better game.
People don't play with the whole bankruptcy thing. They're always like, oh, you can take out a loan. It's like, well, that's why the game takes 8 hours, because you keep allowing people to keep playing.
Or cash on free parking as well also breaks it. Yeah. Monopoly is better than some people.
You've broken the game and that's why you hate it, okay?
But hey, you know, if you like Monopoly and you want to go check this out, go check it out. Also, in Chase's story, as he points out, so there'll be the main play area. There will also be a Monopoly-themed bar and restaurant that will sell a range of themed cocktails and a small plates menu, along with a Monopoly-themed gift shop.
I'm actually kind of upset I moved out of London just before this happened.
Surely they want to contact us for a press trip, right? I mean, Monopoly, if you want to wine and dine us.
Oh yeah, I'm sure after all the positive things we've said about Monopoly on this podcast, they're chomping at the bit.
Hey, Chase wrote the article, right? Where they've gotten what they wanted out of us. But yeah.
So yeah, it's opening in August, I believe.
That's my birthday!
Oh, well then. Team building?
I'm going to write to Hasbro. And ask them to let me go.
But there's like a
Hasbro, I'm sure you're listening to this.
Yeah, obviously.
Call me.
Mm-hmm. Me being Dicebreaker. But there's a little sneak preview of some of the articles that you can read on Dicebreaker.com right now, Matt.
Yeah, so other highlights, I'll whiz through these. So Chase reported recently on the fact that Target over in the US has stopped selling trading cards after recent violence around like the Pokemon trading card game and kind of just the demand at the moment for trading cards, because partly because of COVID, but also because of the skyrocketing value of certain cards.
God, yeah, that's YouTube.
It's wild
again, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been like one of the Paul brothers getting in on it, and Post Malone buying Magic the Gathering cards.
Their stank is all over it.
Yeah. Chase also reported on the new Warhammer Age of Sigmar, if you're interested in that. And recently the real life Orlog from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is extremely expensive, and they're only making like 500 copies of it.
Like dice and some tokens.
Dice and some bowls. There we had a piece written by an anonymous contributor about working in a board game startup that is very interesting and important, and kind of outlines their experience there, which doesn't sound wholly positive, kind of being behind the scenes on some big Kickstarters. We've got the details on the next Pandemic game, which is another one of the Hot Zone spin-offs. So it plays in about 15 minutes. but they've put out a version you can play for free. You can print and play it at home. So if you're interested, you can check it out before it comes out in August, I think. Meehan, you reported on the first board game coming out of Darrington Press, which is like the board game publisher founded by like members of Critical Role. So Ukatoa is is the board game.
Yeah, this has been my entire Twitter feed for the
Yeah.
past 2 days.
So that's got a release date, and you can read some more details there. So head on over to Dicebreaker.com and read the latest news.
Do it! Dicebreaker.com.
Enough about news. Look at that. A lean 15 minutes. And now we get to do the most exciting part of this podcast, which is the brand new segment that we're introducing. Well,
I love you.
This week and going forward,
now you have to name it.
Well, yeah, so this is part of it. So each week we are going to come up with something different. Like maybe we'll revisit certain ideas, but we're basically going to come up with different silly games that we can play, sometimes with you, sometimes just among us. And
no, we're not playing.
We're not playing Among Us. We're not going to name them because we're going to try and invent names live on air because that will go really well. Why make this easier than it could be? So this week, I found this board game name generator, I believe created by someone called David Fisher. So thank you, David, that mashes up names from the Board Game Geek database. Reading this, it might only go up to January 2013. So it's also quite old games, but it mashes up their names to create new names. And we're going to describe what these games that don't exist could be. And because I found this, I'm going to take credit for naming it, and I'm going to call it the Board Game Name Game.
Yeah, the board game name game.
The extra name on the end actually sells it for me.
Yeah,
You say it with that much confidence, I'm like, oh no, I'm into this.
Okay, so what
That's
I'm
the
gonna
jingle,
do,
by the way. If anybody wants to clip that, put some music on that for next time, that'd be great.
So I'm gonna read some of these.
Matt, do you think this would be quite funny if we all take a turn, and then we're all assigned a name, which we then individually have to try and do the best that we can? Or do you want to make this like a collaborative? Someone says the funniest name, we all try and make a game together.
Yeah, let's try and make a game together, but we can do one each.
Why don't we do it like Snake Oil? And you pitch the game.
Oh, that's a really good idea, Lolies.
Let's do that. You can look. We came up with the idea. We got about that far, and we went, "That'll be fun to just discuss on air and work it out as
It's
we go."
live, baby. Because I've got quite a fun name here.
Okay, you shoot, because I am trying to look for something that matches any of the ones when we were just messing around with this in our planning meeting, and there was James Mann, which is James Bond Jr. and something. Just James Mann.
James Mann.
Okay, your game title, Dicebreaker contestants, is Nuclear Election.
Oh yeah,
It sounds really boring and serious.
Does it?
Yeah.
Or does it sound like crazy mutants with green slime? Because that's what I'm pitching.
Come on, sell it to us, Wills. It's your name.
Well, so has anyone played Nuclear Throne, the video
No.
game? Okay, so that's one of those like wackies, like 90s gross out vibe, kind of like what they called like Garbage Pail Kids, like that kind of vibe to it. I'm imagining this is maybe it's a little bit satirical because it's got the election angle. Maybe, you can imagine some of the worst presidents from history, maybe that not that far in history. And you can imagine them in like gooey green slimy visuals in a post-apocalypse like comedy environment, and they are now like vying to be the next president of the new United States or whatever. I'm thinking it's like a Take That game mixed with the kind of like Snake Oil, like that kind of like, here's why you should vote for me, where you draw cards that you have to try and explain away, that kind of thing, in this weird goopy world.
Goopy.
Like
Goopy is definitely Goopy is definitely it's interesting me. That is the main sort of aspect.
You're a big fan of Goopy, Meehan.
Yeah.
In fairness, I do consider most politicians to just be like a load of gunk in a suit. So yeah, that tracks.
They're all Krang and Kodos, aren't they? Basically. I've got one here that I really like. And I think it's gonna be the basis for creating a fantastic game that we can all enjoy. It's called Calling Chase.
Ah!
But what we do is we
Calling Chase, calling Chase, calling Mr. Chase, calling Chase, come on now.
we have to try. Matt has to try and get Chase's mobile number for us, and then we just have to try and call him.
Is it like the thing from when you were a kid and there was that board game where you're trying to
Dream
get on
Phone.
a date? Dream phone. Yeah,
Okay.
but with Chase.
It'll be like that, but less
You have
creepy.
to pitch Chase an article.
Yeah, no, I like the idea of okay, so you have a stack of cards and you have to call Chase to try and get him to like say something or like you have to try and get him to do something.
It's like
there was like a Radio 1 like thing where they did this, I think. Or it's like a classic prank call thing. You try and get them to repeat back your phrase. But I like this. I think Chase would be game as well. We'd get Chase's consent.
Yeah, I mean, we would get him his consent, but it would say we could ring him at any point. So you can wake up at his time at like 2 a.m, get on that phone, ring calling Chase. And then you have to tell us, I'm calling Chase now. And then we're like, okay, give us the results when you got them.
I love the idea that from now on, all business with Chase has to be conducted via the phone, but he doesn't know which of it is real Dicebreaker business and which of it is us playing calling Chase.
Well, exactly.
So
and
he
then
has to try and
he has to figure out which part of this is something he actually has to do for work, and what part of it is.
And then an article goes off on Dicebreaker that makes no sense, and he's just like, I don't know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, an article goes up about a local carrot growing contest, and he's like, "Oh no, this is," and then we would message and go, "Oh, haha, Chase, sorry, that was part of." That's my idea.
There you go. Some great games already.
I've got one. My one is called The Whole Numble.
Oh boy.
Which it's a dexterity game kind of where you've got a board and it's like you kind of use the actual board, not the box of the board game to play. I like those games. And there's a hole that's the size of your index finger, and you have to put your finger in the hole and try. And there's a certain number of something underneath, and you have to, with your one finger, you have to try and figure out how many, and then you have to make a guess, and it's called The Whole Numble.
Are you being loose in your interpretation of the word numble?
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure what that word means.
Because it's I'm pretending like it's number, but also like a nimble number game. Like, and it's a whole.
Your finger is nimble.
Number. Yeah.
My good sir, your finger is so nimble.
You have quite a nimble number, my good lord.
Yeah. Is there an actual meaning for numble?
I don't
know. Oh, we're not. This is where it turns out to be some terrible Urban Dictionary slang.
I know there's a pie called a numble pie, which is like made of
is that
like
a humble
innards.
pie?
A nimble numble.
There is one entry in Urban Dictionary. It says numble means being totally incompetent at something. Bro, John was really numble when flirting at the party yesterday. None of the girls went home with him.
And that works as well, because I think the objects will be such that it'll be hard to count with just one finger.
Well, you would hope, yeah.
And that's part of it as well. There's two different meanings for numble. So it works on like every scale.
Matt Jarvis, what have you got for us?
I've actually been struggling. I found at one point the mother load of Sticky Panda, which I thought, but I'm going to go for something that's less viable to get us banned on YouTube. And
why would you go with that?
I'm gonna go for Hungry Mad Maintenance Man because it's got a nice ring to it.
It's like Hungry Hippos, but with maintenance men.
Well, I think this is the thing, right? It's almost like the way I envision this is it's a dexterity game. And there is a maintenance man, and
he's mad.
He's hungry mad.
Yeah.
He's hungry.
And so there's just like, in kids' toys, what's the dentist game where you have to like touch the teeth and all the crocodile teeth and stuff like that? There's like that. There's a big plastic mouth at one end of the board, and you have to flick food items to the hungry mad maintenance man. But in the way, your opponents can place classic obstacles that a maintenance man may encounter.
Please name these classic obstacles, Matt.
Loose
warning
pipes.
cones. Yeah, loose pipes is a great one.
Yeah.
Vents.
Wires.
Wires, yeah.
Driving laws.
Everyone knows that I struggle with vents, so that's...
warning the floor is slippery. Signs. Yeah, that kind of thing. All things to do with maintenance of any kind. Large screwdrivers, spanners,
spilled
socket
nails.
wrench. Yeah, great. That's a great one. Yeah.
Mm.
And if you hit any of those, depending on what they are with your food thing, they may do different things. So if you hit a nail, maybe the chunk of delicious BLT sandwich that you're trying to get into the mouth of the hungry man maintenance man, it sticks, and therefore it becomes a bigger obstacle. Whereas if you hit a cone, the cones are imbued with magical sentience. So then that chunk of food becomes aware of its own existence.
Yes.
And then works against you somehow.
I don't like when people just put magic into games when it doesn't really fit.
Okay,
I enjoyed it until
it's nano machines.
We want a realistic experience here.
Now I'm imagining, like, because you've got the whole, like, you put down these obstacles. Has anyone played Ultimate Chicken Horse?
Yes.
Ultimate Chicken Horse is a platformer video game where you make like a level, but then you all make the level harder as you go. But you have to make it hard enough that you can do it, but you don't think anyone else can. So it's like you're like gambling on your own ability. So if you've got like, I reckon I could bounce my half of a Mr. Kipling's apple pie off of like a wet floor sign, stick it on some tacks that then like slaloms down into the mouth for an ultimate trick shot, you know? I think there's something in here. We don't have nano machines. They're not ready yet.
Okay, well, I think the mad aspect comes in that he's just really angry that he's going hungry. So every now and then he'll spit like venom at you, and that will melt chunks of sandwich.
Wow,
this is violent.
Or your fingers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look, it's hungry mad maintenance man for a reason. Like that.
Yeah, I love the name. It's very alliterative, which is strong. Yeah. It's I think it's something that people will remember.
Yeah,
it's
so
like,
you just
for decades to come.
It's like wacky
and the SEO
flailing tube man. You know, it's got that ring to it.
Hold on,
hungry,
what's it called again?
He's maintenance man. He's hungry mad maintenance man.
Hungry mad maintenance man.
I'm gonna buy the URL right now.
Please just redirect it to this podcast.
Have
you still got up what games were combined into your...
Oh, yeah. Mine were Nuclear Armageddon and Presidential Elections. So that's kind of a bit on the nose, really.
Mine was Hungry Fox plus Big Mac, the Mad Maintenance Man.
What?
Big Mac, the Mad Maintenance Man. Let me go on this
like
Board Game Geek entry.
The TV repair guy.
Oh, this is actually a Commodore 64 game, so I guess there are video games in the Board Game Geek. It's got a 10 out of 10 rating from one person. Let me read this comment.
That would
I liked this game so much that I started to use Big Mac as a nickname.
Wow.
That's from David Shefford on Board Game Geek.
Hey, they call me Big Mac.
Thanks,
oh, why? What's
the burger?
Any reason? Oh, I really like this Commodore 64 game called Big Mac, so I start calling myself that.
That would explain why Donkey Kong Country was in here as well.
What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know which games made my one because I've refreshed since then, but I did find one more that I just had to bring up called Buffy the Vampire Love London. And love is spelled W-U-V.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Buffy is now a vampire, not a vampire slayer, and she loves London.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're all ready to apologize in a moment.
Okay.
Because Tumble Numble is the whole Numble.
Tumble Numble sounds great.
Well, the whole numble is based on the hole in one and tumble numble. And Tumble Numble is a game where you roll dice and they have numbers on them. So it was always going to be numbers, and you all doubted me. And
Tumble Numble sounds
not a
like
competition on who can accurately guess what this word might mean.
Tumble Numble sounds like something that Americans think that British people use to describe having
It sounds
sex.
like number wang.
Yeah.
well, number. That's why I chose it, because I was like, oh, I'll just make it like number wang. But then, as I thought about it, I was like, do you know what? No, I can go somewhere with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead
Hold
of
on a second,
woohoo,
I'm
it's
onto
like,
something.
would
Yeah.
you care for a spot of Tumble Numble?
Here we go then. For the live audience here, listening and watching to this podcast on youtube.com/Dicebreaker, please let us know your votes. Who pitched the best board game? That's right. Vote now on your phones.
Now, lines are still open because this is live.
Remember,
we
if
can
you're
make that
watching
joke
this
and it actually
pre-recorded,
works.
then please do not send in a text.
You may still be charged. While
Sam
we're
Robinson
waiting
just
for
says not Lolies.
while we're
Very
waiting for that to
rude.
come in, let's read some emails.
Emails.
And also
Yeah,
chat
yeah.
messages. If you've got a
Sorry.
question for the Dicebreaker podcast and you're listening to this on catch up, you can email us at podcast@dicebreaker.com. If you're watching this live, hey, drop them in the chat and we'll try and read as many as we can. Let's jump back to this document. Alex Lolies, would you like to read this one from Jacob, please?
Sorry, Mike Jones says Gareth Gates is the winner.
Did you say from George?
Jacob.
Oh, that one.
Oh.
Do you know that song? John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith.
No.
His name is my name too.
Nope.
No?
No idea.
Do you not
What?
know that?
No, what?
Okay, anyway.
I
Is
knew
that the
it.
question?
Yes, that's what Jacob asked. Jacob says, with in-person to person becoming more of a possibility in the near future, which game should we first play after lockdown? Like with friends we haven't seen in a long time, or strangers at the bar?
Crokinole.
Crokinole, 100%. However, I want to get a big group of people in
Happy
a
Salmon.
room and play Happy Salmon. Lodies
Oh.
was there straight away. That is the
Salmon.
most we can finally touch again game.
That's
Get
true,
that
yeah.
glorious.
Yeah, just skin red from hours of Happy Salmon, just like weeping with joy as you just
Slap them salmons. Yeah.
I've got two, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to play Secret Hitler because it's one of my all-time favorite games, and I've had friends who've played it like online with each other, but it's just such an intense game. I've not wanted to put myself into that situation. And also in the same kind of vein, Two Rooms and a Boom.
Oh yeah,
that's a great shout.
Playing
yeah.
that at UK Games Expo in the evening, like in the hotel like lobby, just randomly with people was like always the best time, and I miss it, and I really want to play it again. So good.
That would be a great like Dicebreaker social at an event thing to do, actually.
Yeah.
Like, come
Yeah,
to the
big
Dicebreaker
time.
gang, we'll run Two Rooms and a Boom for you.
Yeah.
Meehan.
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious ones. I have a copy of Scythe, and I've not physically played it yet. It's just sat there. You know, when I get my copy of Root, just experiencing those games in person properly now that I know how to play them. And I just really want to play Junkart. Like, I've been thinking about Junkart forever.
I love Junkart.
Junkart's
Oh, I
great.
should buy Junkart.
No, my friends have a copy.
Did you know
but,
that one of the designers who made Junkart is also one of the designers who's making Jungshi?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sent
yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
That took me ages to realize.
No
that. I was like,
way!
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Quite a breadth of content.
How have you forgotten this? We played with them.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
I just didn't
No,
know. he
I
was the
didn't
Junkart
know
designer,
that he
or
did that.
rather, I forgot or something. You know.
Yeah, I think I might have known. Now that you say it, I feel like I knew that at some point, and maybe I just forgot. Yeah.
Junkart is a really great dexterity, silly game that I just really want to play those kinds of games again that you just can't replicate online.
Cookie
Matt
Cat 94 in the
Jarvis.
super chat has suggested that we combine Happy Salmon and Secret Hitler for the ultimate chaos.
I
think
think
it's
that'll
like
have to
if-
be called Secret Salmon because it can't be the other one.
Would alliterate.
Happy Hitler.
They both alliterate. It's actually really good.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? I think then the way it works is that the fascists can let each other know who they are by doing this.
Oh, that's like a secret handshake. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Hold up, gang. You play Happy Salmon, but whoever is the like traitors have those electric buzzer things on their palms.
Oh. Oh boy.
Matt Jarvis.
Hello.
What
I
do you
already
play?
said I already said Croconaut, but I think you're right. Like Happy Salmon is the other one that there's just no way to replicate, right? Like even Croconaut, there's a tabletop sim mod, but Happy Salmon, you just can't. Like it's impossible unless you get like weird
VR.
Yeah, VR.
VR. Oh, Happy Salmon in VR. Could you imagine?
It wouldn't really work though because you don't really have limbs.
It's, it's great until you just like you're trying to Happy Salmon with the edge of your door frame or something, and just
Happy Salmon, your cat.
oh.
That would work
Your
with
cat's
Toto,
just
to be
like-
fair. Just nice.
Yeah.
When I used to have the VR set up, I used to trip over the cat quite a lot. It was not ideal.
Mhm.
Honey stays out of the way. She's really smart. She's the
one of
smartest
my-
cat in the whole world.
One of my favorite things about the quest is when you're making like your little safe area, it shows you like nodes where it can detect objects, like a table or something. And every now and again, Toto will be sat in the middle of it, just generating this huge column of nodes. This large boy.
Oh.
All right. Well, we're coming up to the end of our allotted time for this podcast, Matt. Should we do one last quick-fire question and then ring it off?
Yeah, let's do. You know what? Let's continue the trend this episode of coming up with ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Wills, would you like to read this email from George, please?
Email. This is a question from George. It's a beefy one. Hi, Dicebreaker team. Firstly, thank you so much for simply existing. Without you all, I doubt I would have discovered the wholesome world of tabletop gaming and would have missed out on the amazing benefits to my mental health it has afforded me over this past year. Much love and respect. Thank you very much for watching, George. Anyway, a while ago, I was given a card deck of great Shakespearean deaths. It has great artwork, information on the various characters from the works of Shakespeare, and the funny and tragic ways they met their doom. It also has stats associated with each card. But you guessed it, the gameplay is essentially Top Trumps. Which is perhaps not the most exciting or engaging game ever invented. Can you suggest any other uses for what is otherwise a very pretty and entertaining deck of cards? Maybe some alternative rules to Top Trumps from George. I think so, Matt. I think I saw this email and it had
some examples. Yeah,
had
I
example
did cut
stats.
it down a little bit.
Yeah, there was an example stat, and one of them was like woefulness or something like that. The stat names are actually really funny, which makes
Chicanery.
Chicanery.
I've got an idea straight off the bat. I think they should be used in like a role-playing game. in the sense
Absolutely.
that-
Yeah.
Yeah, in the, like, what if you're like, oh, one of my characters is about to die? Okay, quick, let me get one of these cards, and this is how. This is, I don't know, or like a role-playing game where people meet a bitter end, and then you're like, oh, I can use this as like a mechanic in that. Like people
Reminds
have
me
to
of
draw
Gloom,
the card.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They must have done Shakespeare Gloom by now, surely.
Mike Jones suggests that you use the cards for NPC death generators.
That's very good.
That's
That is
very
good.
fun. There is, I would like the idea to further Meehan's point as well. I like there's a meme that goes around in the like TCRPG space. You know how there's like you'll post a thing of like two things next to each other, and someone says, "Oh yes, the two genders" or something like that. There's like you have two stats, and then what was it? Woefulness and chicanery. Basically,
pretty
lasers
good.
and feelings, but
Yeah, or they could be used to make your character stats. Yeah.
Do it. Do it. Someone make
yeah.
an RPG.
Oh, the Shakespeare RPG. I would lap that up so much.
You really would.
I really would.
Is that like you are a character in a Shakespearean play though, or is that like a weird meta thing of you're like Shakespeare and Marlowe writing a play and you have to then like fiasco style?
It would either be like the extended Shakespeare universe.
The Shakespeare cinematic universe, yeah.
Yeah, the Shakespeare cinematic universe, where like Desdemona and like Othello and like Iago and Macbeth are
the
like
parrot from Aladdin, yeah.
Yeah, the parrot from Aladdin are in the same sort of story together.
Othello! That's how you should answer the phone.
I feel like I'm talking to people who aren't that into this, so I'm just going to stop.
No, I'm with you.
No, I'm just vibing.
We're vibing.
Matt.
You gotta make that funny content, Meehan.
Yeah, there you go.
I will say on a kind of off-topic thing, there's a really interesting game a PC game called Elsinore, where you play as Ophelia in the events of Hamlet, but you repeat the events and try and save people from kind of their tragic doom.
Right.
Oh,
So
boy.
it ends up with almost like Groundhog Day
Oh,
or the something brutal. Oh gosh, I can't remember. It was
Sexy
a really good.
Brutal.
Sexy
Yeah, I think that was
Brutal,
it. Yeah, that's a really great game. Yeah. So it's along those lines, but it's a really good PC game by an
Sounds really
indie
cool.
studio. So yeah, I would be interested to see like a tabletop game that works like that, where I think someone might have even suggested it in the chat, which probably triggered this in my mind, but you are Shakespearean characters that know their own, like they know they're part of a tragedy, so they have to try and break the kind of meta
Oh, that's cool.
structure.
Yeah.
You get free acts to try and swerve away from your doom.
I think it was David Leonard Flanagan who suggested that, which is a very good idea.
Yes, thank you, David.
But yeah, there we go. The first ever live episode of the Dicebreaker podcast, Matt.
Yeah,
We did it.
And we'll be back, of course, next Friday with another episode of the Dicebreaker podcast. We'll be back with another segment that will probably make up on the spot.
And
like this week.
another person.
And yeah, you're right, another person. We have a new video producer joining us next week who you'll be able to meet very soon. We're very excited. We've already spent some time getting to know them and hanging out and stuff, and they are amazing. So
They fit
yeah,
very well.
They're like a glove.
Yeah, we can't wait for everyone to meet them and for them to meet everyone. But until then, it's been us, the old crowd, the faces that you already know. Let us know what you thought of this live format.
Oh yeah, because if you thought it was terrible, then
Then we'll do it anyway.
We're carrying on.
yeah. Let us know at Join Dicebreaker on Twitter. You can find us on dicebreaker.com. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Dicebreaker. Thank you for being here, Alex Meehan.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you for being here, Alex Lolies.
Pretend this is slow-mo. Thanks for having me.
For those listening to the audio version, Lolies swung their head round like a L'Oreal advert. Thank you for being here, Wheels.
Thanks for having me too.
I've been Matt Jarvis. Thank you for listening to the Dicebreaker podcast. We'll be back next Friday. Until then, stay safe out there. Have a good weekend and have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.